Welcome back. In the previous session, we have almost completed the concept of Poisson distribution, and we have learned how to fit a Poisson distribution in a random variable situation where you will be given x values and corresponding frequencies of each of its x values, and that f is known as actual events or observed frequencies. Some terms are used synonymously, and on the basis of those values we have learned how to find the theoretical distribution or expected frequencies. I hope you all guys have gone through it, and if you have any queries with regarding to that, please let me know. Let us go to the next area. Normal distribution. I hope you have heard about the term normal distribution, because during the theoretical distribution introduction part I have mentioned several times about the different kinds of distribution which we have to learn, and there are three types of distribution: binomial distribution, Poisson distribution, and normal distribution. And we have learned about binomial distribution and Poisson distribution. The binomial distribution and Poisson distributions are the most useful theoretical distribution if you are dealing with a question where random variables are discrete, that is x value will be a single values, x 0 1 2 3 like that. That is known as discrete variables. Normal distribution is most useful theoretical distribution for continuous variable. If you are dealing with a continuous variable situation, you will be using normal distribution, just like the case of age of students in a class 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, likewise. That is known as class, continuous series. And when you are dealing with continuous series situation or class situation, you will be using normal distribution situation. So normal distribution is perhaps the most important and useful distribution in statistics, because most of the studies with regard to research or in business or in commerce or any other disciplines, we will be dealing with the data that are usually represented in a continuous series or in class form. Many statistical data concerning business and economic problems, we are dealing with, our subject is regarding business and economic problems, and many of the statistical data relating to business and economic problems are displayed in the form of normal distribution concept. Therefore, it is the most important probability model in the case of statistical analysis, and we are using normal distribution in almost all the scenarios with regard to any research related to business as well as economics. So with regard to the history of normal distribution, we have discussed about the concept for which kind of distribution or which case of situation we are using normal distribution. We have discussed that. Next, we need to know something about the normal distribution concept. The normal distribution is a continuous probability distribution, as we have mentioned several times right now or in the previous sessions. It was developed by De Moivre in 1733 as a limiting form of binomial distribution. The meaning of that is binomial distribution can't be used in case of a situation where continuous series or a class is given. Binomial distribution is applicable in case of discrete series. So in order to solve that one, that is known as limiting factor. Binomial distribution has some limits. That is known as limiting factor. That limiting factor is overcome by the use of normal distribution concept. The fundamental importance of normal distribution is that many populations seem to follow approximately a pattern of distribution as described by normal distribution. Numerous situations in which we will be using normal distribution are: if you are studying the details of age distribution of any type of animals or species, human beings, whatever it is, height of adult persons, intelligence test scores of students, and many other situations in which we will be using normal distribution, because such data will be represented in a class format or a continuous format. For example, a company manufactures screws of a particular diameter. There may be some variations in the measurement, that is quite natural, but most of the screws have the diameter very near to what is required. Few of them are either much larger or much smaller. If we draw a histogram of the frequency distribution of measurement, we see that the histogram has a maximum height at the center, and the height decreases on the either side in almost same rate. So if the class intervals of the frequency distribution is made smaller and smaller, we get a curve of the shape of a bell. It is known as normal curve. We will discuss about the normal curve with the example pattern in detail in the coming sessions. Anyway, think about it and remember it that if you are representing a normal distribution in a curve or a diagram, that is known as normal curve, and it will be in the shape of a bell, and we'll come to that part and why it is in the form of a bell, and we will discuss about that also in the coming sessions. Before that, the main function with regard to the normal distribution is a normal distribution usually will be a continuous random variable represented by x. Said to follow normal distribution if its probability function is represented by, see, this is the normal distribution function, or otherwise known as the equation with regard to normal distribution, just like the equations which we have learned in the case of binomial distribution as well as Poisson distribution. Don't worry about the equation. In the actual application level question, we will be using another equation, but remember, this is the representation of probability function with regard to normal distribution. You can see that p of x means whatever the variable under study, 1 divided by root of 2 pi. You have learned about pi in your school time. 2 pi into standard deviation into e raised to minus 1 by 2 whole brackets x minus mu. Remember this term, you can see that it's like a u with both sides there is an extension. It is known as mu. Mu means mean of this normal distribution is known as mu. So you may think that we will discuss about mean, usual mean as well as mean in case of a normal distribution. We will come to that part, but remember the mean of the normal distribution is known as mu. In a normal distribution, important parameters are mean, otherwise known as mu, and standard deviation. These two are the most important parameters with regard to normal distribution. We will come to that part. With regard to this probability function of normal distribution, where mu and standard deviation, remember the signs and the terms are constants, that they will be remain the same, and mu being the mean, the name of the sign is mu, otherwise known as mean of normal distribution. Mu being the mean, and this one is known as sigma, or this is known as standard deviation. The variables pi is 3.14. We have learned about the value of pi in the smaller classes. But in the application level question, we need not have to use this area because there is another equation with regard to that. And the value of e is 2.71828. These are constant. These are the various variables and values with regard to this function of probability relating to normal distribution. Remember, mu, otherwise known as mean of normal distribution, and standard deviation are known as the parameters of normal distribution. Just like the p and q in case of binomial distribution and m in case of a Poisson distribution, here the parameters are mu and standard deviation. For various values of mu and standard deviation, we get different curves. Mu shows the location of the curve along the x-axis, and the standard deviation indicates the spread of the curve. During the preparation of curve, normal curve type, we will discuss about this. At that time only you will get a clear understanding about it. We will come to that part during the normal curve discussion time. Next one, normal distribution as a limiting case of binomial distribution. We have been discussing that point from the beginning of normal distribution. It is actually a limiting factor of binomial distribution. When number of trials, otherwise known as n, is very large and p and q are not very small or equal. These are the two major situations in which normal distribution has to be used, because in these two cases they do not satisfy the properties of binomial distribution. So whenever you are going to study a particular random variable situation or question relating to that, if these two situations arises, that is the number of trials is very large and the p and q are almost equal, in that case binomial distribution cannot be used. That is the limiting factor of binomial distribution, and it is overcome with the help of normal distribution. So the normal distribution equation function is otherwise known as standard normal variate, or otherwise known as unit normal variate, and this is the equation with regard to normal distribution. You need to learn this equation. This is the most important function with regard to normal distribution, and we will be using the same equation, this one, the same equation for dealing with various application level question. And normal distribution is usually represented by a variable z equal x minus mu divided by standard deviation. Here x will be the random variable under the study, just like the values x equal to whatever the values. In this case it is a continuous series, we will come to that. Anyway, the x represent random variable under the study, mu represent mean of the Poisson distribution, and this one standard deviation represents standard deviation, otherwise known as sigma of the Poisson distribution. And so the equation will be z equal to x minus mu divided by standard deviation. It is known as standard normal variate, otherwise known as unit normal variate. And remember, if you are dealing with a question where mean equal to 0 and standard deviation equal to 1, then the distribution of z, this one, z is known as standard normal distribution. During the problem areas, you will get a clear picture about standard normal distribution, because in the problem area you need to draw out a curve depending upon your analysis. Next one, properties of normal distribution. Just we will discuss about the concept with regard to properties, because during the computation part we will be discussing important properties that are required as per the computation. So some of the properties of normal distribution. Normal distribution is a continuous distribution, so it will be, if it is represented in a graph, you will get a continuous curve, because you are dealing with a continuous distribution. That is, the value of x will be going on like that, it will not end. So you will get, if you are representing the same in a graph, the curve will also be a continuous curve. That is one of the properties with regard to that. Normal curve is a symmetrical about the mean. With the curve we have learned about the symmetric and asymmetric. Symmetric means a certain equality in maintenance of the curve with regard to mean. We will discuss that part with a curve. Both sides of the normal curve coincide exactly. That is one of the properties. If you represent the curve in a graph, the both sides of the curve is like a bell-shaped curve. You will discuss that. Bell-shaped curve, and if you represent it in a graph, the both sides coincide exactly at the same point. Normal curve is a bell-shaped curve. we will show a curve, then you will get an understanding. See, we have been discussing about normal curve, which will be a bell shaped, the lines coinciding like that, but you haven't seen a normal curve like this. See, this is an example of a normal curve. See, it begins just like that, it keeps on going and reaches a topmost point. After that, it will fall down at an equal proportion, just like the line which have just gone to upward side. The same proportion will be maintained in the downward slope also. If you see that the line is not intersecting, it may coincide or not. Even if it coincide, if this side coincide at a point, then this side will also coincide at exactly the same point where the first line has touched. The line will go like this for a continuous flow, that is known as normal distribution is a continuous distribution. It will go on like that. Here also it will go on like that. It is a normal curve. And remember, the topmost form, it will be the middle point from which the graph has been drawn. This point is the point where the mean, median and mode of the random variable under study will be the maximum and will be equal. And the value of entire line stretching from left hand side to right hand side is represented by a number 1. That is, from here to here it is represented as 50%. 50% of 1 is 0.5. And from here to here, from this point to this side, it is also 0.5. So both sides it will be 0.5. The difference is that whatever the area to the right of this line, right of the central point, this side is known as positive side, and whatever that comes to the left of this line is known as negative side. So you will be dealing with a question where you will get a value positive as well as negative. Positive means you have to draw a curve depending upon the values. We will discuss that, where you have to plot the line in the right hand side. If it is a negative value, then you have to plot it in the left hand side. So this is how a normal curve looks like. Mean, median, mode coincide at the center of the curve, just as I mentioned earlier. That is the most highest point value of the arithmetic values. The quantities are equidistant from median. We have learned about median and this quartile cases. In the case of median situation as well as quartile deviation situation. So I am not going to explain this again. Q3 minus Q2 equal to Q2 minus 1. The quantities are equidistant from median. Normal curve is a asymptotic to the baseline. Just like as I mentioned earlier, the line will go on like this in a continuous flow. If it is coincide, the other side will also coincide, but this line is a continuous line because it is based on a continuous distribution. The total area under normal curve is 100%. 100% means if you take the measurement from this side to this side, you will get the value 1. 1 represents 100. So from this point to right hand side, it is known as 50%. From this point to this side is known as 50%. If you are representing in a percentage value, it is known as 50%. If you are expressing it in numerical terms, the entire value of this area is known as 1. And this area is represented by 0.5 and here also represented by 0.5. The ordinate at the mean divide the whole area under a normal curve into two equal parts, 50% on two sides. We have discussed that. From this point to right is 50% and this point to this side is 50%. If it is a 100% scale, it is known as 50-50%. If it is represented in numerical terms, it is like 1. From this one to this one, 0.5. This one to this one, 0.5. The height of the normal curve is at its maximum at the mean. Not only mean, median, mode will be equal at that point. See, the value of mean will be the topmost, and it is this point where the value of these arithmetic values will be higher, and here the mean, median, mode will be equal. It is a unimodal figure because it has a one mode. See, there is only one mode and it is a unimodal representation. Normal curve is mesokurtic. We have learned about mesokurtic, platokurtic, and leptokurtic in the third semester. So I'm not going to explain again and again. If you have doubts with that, just refer the previous sessions. No portion of the normal curve lies below x-axis. So that is a property with regarding to that. The curves will only go in a continuous flow throughout the x-axis, but it doesn't, even if it coincide, it will not go below x-axis. That is a property. Theoretically, the range of the normal curve is minus infinity to plus infinity. Minus infinity means, as I mentioned earlier, this line is a continuous line. Here also a continuous line. So it is represented by infinity. That is why infinity is used. And values to the right hand side is positive, values to the left hand side is negative. That is why minus infinity to plus infinity. And it is represented by a value 3 standard minus 3 and plus 3. We will discuss that with another scale. Then you will get a picture about this minus 3 and plus 3, minus 3 and plus 3. Area under the normal curve is distributed as follows. This is the values you have to familiarize with, because during the computation area we will be taking decisions or interpretation on the basis of these values. So mean, or otherwise known as mu, and standard deviation, if it is plus or minus, the value will be, if it is minus 1 and plus 1, if your value lies in between minus 1 and plus 1, the chances of area covered under that particular value is 68.27. So in which part of the normal curve this 68.27 covers? See, from this point to this point. This is the areas where the value of the mean or standard deviations will lie between minus 1 and plus 1. And 68.27 represents that. Next one, the chances that your value of computation lies between minus 2 and plus 2. Minus 2 and plus 2 means from here on to here. From here the 0, plus, 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 minus, 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 plus 0, 1, 2, 3. Likewise, that is the scale of representation. So minus 2 to plus 2, it is represented by, see, the study is that 95.45% of the areas covers between minus 2 and plus 2. If you get a value in between minus 2 or plus 2, these are the minus 2 and plus 2 is the area under the study. 95.45% of the total normal curve is covered under this minus 2 and plus 2 values. And finally, minus 3 and plus 3, it covers around 99.73%, otherwise known as 98.37%, is covered under this area. The scale will be, here it will be 0, 1, 2, 3. Likewise, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. This side is plus 1, this side is minus. So that is why minus and plus. So if your value is in between this, then the chances are the 98.73% of the normal curve is covered under these particular values, in between these values. And during the computation side, we will discuss about this, how this percentage is taken and what is the meaning of the area under cover under study. Because in the question you may have to find the value or percentage of area covered under the study. You may be given values on the basis of your computation. You need to find the percentage values just like this. Sometimes the percentage value, or it may be represented in the probability values, depending upon the nature of the question. So this is how you have to deal with a normal distribution case. We will discuss further regarding that in the next sessions. Until then, go through the theoretical concept of normal distribution. Remember the functional equation which we have to deal while dealing the problems with regard to normal distribution. And remember the bell-shaped figure and what are the percentage covered under the study, from what point to which point certain percentage of area covered. Remember those points, because during the computation area you need to have an aware about those aspects. So just go through it. If you have any queries, please let me know. We will discuss about the further cases in the next one.